Uh, and then people are like, floor? You mean the thing I stand on? It's like, oh no, it's a metonymy for uh,
The sandwich. It's a floor sandwich.
mhm. What did they call it in French? The estage. So that would just be stage.
Oh, okay. My coworker's I don't know if it's fair to call him a huge SpongeBob fan, but I ran
Mhm.
across some merch for Bob L'Eponge or whatever, but SpongeBob but in French, and he was losing his mind. He couldn't get enough of French SpongeBob. Bob L'Eponge. I don't know how to pronounce French.
Mhm. Bonjour et bienvenue sur Beacon of Création, un podcast hebdomadaire sur la conception de jeux à travers le prisme de Magic the Gathering.
Wow.
I actually don't know how you say Magic the Gathering in French.
And I'm Tim.
Yeah, they just call it Magic the Gathering because it is a proper noun.
All right. Yeah.
La source officielle d'annonce d'informations sur Magic the Gathering, le plus célèbre jeu de cartes collectionné du monde est MTG Arena.
Mm.
And I'm Juliet. Pardon my French.
We're getting fancy this week because we're reviewing our design challenge for September, which was To the Nines, design an equipment card that doesn't use the equip ability, so it has to find some other way to get attached. We were kind of inspired by the Shackle playtest card.
Our bonus points were the clothes make the man, the equipment overwrites some characteristic of the attached permanent, and here, get my good side. If it affects power and toughness, it does so unevenly. Not square stats.
We heard from a couple of people, this is a pretty tough one to make equipment without equip. Kind of correspondingly, we only got 9 entries for this one instead of our usual maybe like 15-ish.
But each one is perfectly tailored to this month because it is
Ooh.
the 9th month. It is the To the Nines challenge, and we have 9 cards to review here.
Our Melvin brain is activated. Yeah, we're feeling good. We're looking at all the numbers, all the angles.
Our first one is from Crypt Rat. It's Scarab Shelmet, a artifact equipment uncommon for a single red mana. At the beginning of each opponent's combat, that player attaches this equipment to a creature they control. Equipped creature is an insect drone and gets +1/+0. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to an opponent, you and its controller each create a treasure token.
So this doesn't have like a goad built in, like some of these sort of like share around creatures, like a Tangarth or something.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to an opponent, you and its controller each create a treasure token. So you in this case is still the equipment's owner?
Yes, because you control the equipment, they control the creature. When it deals combat damage, they get a treasure and you get a treasure. And they get an extra point of power out of the bargain
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. And then opponent in this case would be as the owner of the equipment, my opponents, or
Ooh. What an interesting idea.
okay, you could attack me if you want, but if you attack one of our mutual opponents,
You get a treasure.
we both get a treasure. Yeah.
That's an interesting way to semi-goad.
Yeah.
To goad, but leave some choices up to both players. It's uneven. It sets the type line to insect drone, and it doesn't use the equip ability, so that hits the 3 points.
Yeah.
So this doesn't have to attack, also.
That's true. Yeah. It doesn't have to attack. You don't force your opponents into peril just because they only have one creature.
So if this got you a treasure some amount of the time, I'm trying to think of when and whether I would play this card.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out too. And getting 1 to 2 treasure a turn cycle and causing a little bit of chaos, like independent of the exact rules of this card, like if I'm playing a card that's going to maybe generate me like a little bit of treasure and make a couple more attacks happen than would otherwise happen. That's pretty close to like a 1 mana, commander limited type card. That's something that I could get some value out of.
Mhm.
Um, there's a card, Curse of Opulence, that I've seen played, reasonably often, which is like a curse. When an enchanted player is attacked, create a gold token. Each opponent attacking that player does the same. So this is like, hey, Johnny. Whenever anyone attacks Johnny, you get a gold for attacking Johnny. And I do too. Hey, don't pay attention to that. I
Mhm.
feel like that is actually kind of like dogpiley, like that like really makes a huge incentive to attack them, and that, poor Johnny is going to be at 20 life before anyone else hits 35. Something in that same zone. Hey, let's get some more attacks going. Hey, both of us are benefiting, but we're not like hammering exactly one player. I can see some value in that, though. I agree with you. The card is pretty niche.
I think if it wasn't aiming for the bonus points, we could potentially replace the middle ability with like
Hmm.
a pay red to give the creature haste and must
Mm.
attack or something in that sort
Oh,
of space.
yeah, yeah. I like where this is like starting to go. As the player of this card and multiplayer, I'm going to get a couple treasure a turn. Maybe I take a little damage, maybe I don't. That seems like a fun thing to do. Getting a couple treasure is really fun in Commander. All right, next up from Sage Bees, we got another bug. Shriveling Scarab, 2 and a black for an O2 artifact creature equipment insect. It has devoid, so it has no color. Shriveling Scarab or equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each colorless creature you control and has devoid. And then it has Reconfigure for 2. Reconfigure was from Neon Kamigawa. Pay 2 mana, attach a target creature you control, or unattach from a creature. Reconfigure only as a sorcery. When attached, this isn't a creature. I guess kind of it starts as like a 1/2 because it probably counts itself. The Shriveling Scarab gets +1/+0 for each colorless creature you control, and this Shriveling Scarab has devoid.
Mhm. Here we see a redundant devoid having, but I think that's mostly
Hmm.
for clarity's sake that like
Oh
when you
yeah,
aren't paying attention to the second ability, it
yeah,
still has devoid on the front side.
yeah, yeah.
As a cranial plating sort of idea, I think it's interesting to lean the devoid route, which I can't help but think of as a very Eldrazi
Yeah,
esque
yeah.
thing, but instead it's like, oh no, this is counting all of your artifact creatures.
Hmm. So if I have other artifacts in the set, if I have a bunch of generic artifact creatures, I guess artifact creature tokens, like if I'm making a bunch of servos or thopters or something, I could get this number up pretty high. But
If you did go the Eldrazi route, if you got enough Eldrazi spawn, you could
hmm,
be like
yeah.
getting the bonus there, and then maybe if you needed to, you could be sacrificing them for the mana, or you could be attaching this to a single Eldrazi spawn and like
Hmm.
swinging in, and then when
Yeah,
it dies, you're kind of chump attacking each time with a useless sort of thing. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, given how strong cranial plating historically has been, playing in similar spaces has proved pretty fruitful because unless you make
Yeah.
it exactly cranial plating, you can make it pretty strong, but not necessarily format breaking.
The pricing on this card compared to other reconfigure cards sort of makes us think that we are expected to do a lot of deck building work to make this card work because like reconfigure for only 2 mana is a lot less than like I don't know. I'm looking at Bronze Plate Boar, which is a thing that's like gives +3/+2 and has trample, but it costs 5 to reconfigure. Or there's like a +2/+2 that costs 4 to reconfigure. Like you usually have to pay a lot to reconfigure, and that you only have to pay 2 here is sort of saying, hey, we think this is like a hard bar to get over. But if you get over it and you make a bunch of spawn or you have a bunch of servos or whatever kind of thing, you just have a bunch of colorless equipment. You do get something that gives you that that same feeling that cranial plating gave you.
Mhm. I think it'd be interesting if all equipment in a particular set
Hmm.
gave the creatures devoid. If you're
Hmm.
like, this is part of what reconfigure means in a non Kamigawa setting, is it's about like these weird artifact creatures like merging kind of parasitically into you and
Yeah.
doing a completion esque Eldrazifying esque
Hmm.
sort of process to you. equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each equipped creature you control.
Oh, yeah.
You accomplish that by other means.
Yeah, and this says it's a common. If it's a common, maybe there's like a lot of ways to get these, and I have a lot of these little skittering devoid creatures roaming around. And so
Mhm.
like not everybody at the draft table is able to get a lot of colorless things, but I can. And that can be fun.
Yeah. Our next vision is from Ash. It's Rage Spike Crown. It's a rare artifact equipment for red, red, red. At the beginning of each player's combat, that player attaches Rage Spike Crown to target creature they control. Equipped creature is a 5/1 red elemental named Lightning Rager with trample and haste. Creatures named Lightning Rager attack each
Oh,
combat if able.
Lightning Rager.
Which is a token made by Rite of the Raging Storm, a,
Yeah.
uh, a commander card.
Yeah, that was a card. I don't know. When I was looking up all kinds of just like ways to cause some anarchy on the commander table, that's one of them. You get to give everyone at the beginning of each player's upkeep, they create a 5/1 Rager. It has trample haste and dies at end of turn. And then Lightning Ragers can't attack you.
Mhm.
You're kind of giving away these 5/1s that either do nothing, you can not attack, but are probably throwing damage at at your opponents, and you're in the corner biding your time.
Mhm. This is a fun way of accomplishing the unequal power toughness, of
Yeah.
accomplishing the overriding some of the characteristics,
Yeah.
and this is a equipment that makes sense why it doesn't have equip, because it's about, auto equipping once per turn.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that instead of just getting a 5/1 token, each player is turning one of their creatures into a 5/1.
Mhm.
Beginning of each player's combat, that player attaches Rage Spike Crown to target creature they control. So you kind of have to do this. If you have a creature, you're going to have to crown up. It's going to have haste, and then this card requires that Lightning Ragers to attack.
If I could somehow get some 2/2 decayed
Yeah,
tokens on turn
yeah,
2, or just some tokens I don't care about, because also on my turn, if I play this first main phase, I get to attack in with a 5/1 on that
Mm,
turn, which is a fun little treat.
yeah, that's true. From here on out, you can be playing creatures that are really beneficial. I'm going to play like little first strike guys, little guys with lifelink, and I'm going to benefit from them getting upgraded into 5/1s.
I think I like this card better than Rite of the Raging Storm. This is at 3
Mm,
mana. It cares more about what creatures are already on the
yeah.
battlefield,
Yeah.
whereas the 5 mana enchantment has the like, okay, I'm safe from the lightning, but also do creatures matter as much
Yeah.
anymore?
Yeah. That is kind of the thing with the original, with Rite of the Raging Storm, is like it just kind of adds some nonsense to the game that no one is really building around. No one is really taking advantage of. Whereas this Rage Spike Crown, I feel like I'm going to do more deck building.
Ash's note mentions that this has some application as a strange sort of removal for Voltron commanders,
Oh.
which in the sense of like,
Mm.
if your opponent has just their commander out, and that's what their deck is kind of built around, I think.
Yeah.
And then you can just turn their commander into a 5/1 and be like, okay, I will trade with your commander and or ping it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a fun interaction, I think.
Yeah, the crown doesn't require it to be sacrificed, but I guess maybe because it just lowers its toughness so much, that's the kind of removal ish aspect.
You could combine this with like a Knight of Souls Betrayal to build your own abyss.
Yeah, Abyss, you have to sack a creature every turn. Knight of Soul's Betrayal, -1/-1. So whoever gets designated with the crown dies because they're a 5/1 with -1/-1.
You know what happens to a commander when they're struck by lightning?
The same thing that happens to everyone else.
Mhm. No, you got it. You got it, chef's kiss.
Holly would be proud.
I'd be really curious if you had this card in a file and said, okay, make one of these for each color. Obviously,
okay.
not one that necessarily like turns a creature into something that attacks if able and is a, lava ox sort of situation, but
Yeah.
a blue one that costs 8 mana and turns them into
Oh.
8/8 octopuses,
Oh. All right. Yeah, we've had like the vow of duty, vow of flight that are like give a creature +2/+2 and vigilance and can't attack you. Like ways
Mhm,
to not pacify a creature, but just redirect the creature away from you. And
mhm,
you could maybe cycle out this like rare level thing as well. I think one of the
mhm,
things about the vow of, and there's another one that I can't remember, is that they're kind of like low impact, so they stick them in commander decks. They put them in limited sets, but they're too minor to like actually put in like an actual deck. These
mm.
crowns, like maybe these crowns would actually be cool enough that you'd be tempted to put those in your own deck of your own design.
And because it affects your creatures as well,
Yeah.
then
Yep.
what creatures
Yep.
you pick, you've got that extra deck building element,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also it's the sort of thing that, okay, this affects the board for 2 turns and then somebody removes it. It's like, okay, yeah, this is worth removing as opposed to
Yeah.
an aura where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that creature's gonna die, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
This is going to be a board wipe, and this Vow Lightning's gone. Oh, okay, cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, fun card. All right, next up from Tactical Bane, they're back with Fluxmorph Weird, which is 3 mana, but it's blue red hybrid. So blue red hybrid, blue red hybrid, blue red hybrid, 3 of those for a 1/5. It's an artifact creature, equipment weird at uncommon. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 1/5. And then it has blue and a red. So just a hybrid mana. Switch Fluxmorph Weird and equipped creature's power and toughness until end of turn. And once you hear that text, you might guess, yeah, this has reconfigure. So for 2 mana, you can equip this onto something and turn it into a 1/5. I feel like I have to look at the layers chart to know if this card even functions correctly.
Mhm. Abilities
Uh,
granted, base power granted, and then swapping the base power. I think this is probably most interesting alongside creatures who have some, like, weird abilities based on their power or toughness already, whether that's a
hmm.
bloodshot trainee sort of thing,
Oh.
a green hilt trainee.
They care about having 4 power or something.
Their ability can only activate if their
Mm.
power is 4 or greater. That,
Yeah.
like, okay, this is a fun little probably limited combo to have these things
Mhm.
together. Where if I pump enough mana in here, I can just start clearing the board each turn, and I can attack in.
I mean, I guess at a base, this card is pretty useful if I know I'm only blue and red, because 3 mana 1/5 is like kind of close to a card, and then being able to pay 1 mana, the threat of activation. Hey, I'm going to attack with this weird. I guess I have to block it because if I don't block, they get to deal 5 to me. Like that's a pretty useful creature on its own. In that case, maybe I'm just using the reconfigure in that spawn version where I'm just, equipping it onto my worst tokeny creatures and upgrading them into 5 power threats.
I think while this does hit the bonus points of off center, power
Oh
toughness,
yeah.
and overriding some characteristic, I
Yeah.
think it might be better if it skipped on the override. If this was
Mm.
just reconfigure and then, hey, this is a creature, but occasionally you can attach it to another creature. And then if you really want to swap that creature's power and toughness,
Mm.
if you have a, you know, 113 or something, if you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
a 4/8 and you really want to make that
Yeah.
an 8/4 or something, that
Yeah.
you've got this cool little like card A plus card B combo to make my unblockable serpent come in or something.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of like deck building stuff, I think I agree with you. Yeah, because otherwise, yeah, we're stuck just like looking for servos or crappy tokens. Whereas if I could like, yeah, search all of Magic and look for the 110. Now I feel like I'm making something powerful and funny.
Mhm. If we're also scrapping the PT off balance, I might just give
Yeah.
it equipped creature gets +1/+1. That way you could equip this onto various walls with like
Oh, yeah.
giant toughness and
Yeah.
no power.
Yeah.
The trees from the various visits to Innistrad and stuff, like, and that way your 0/13, when you flip it, at least has one eventual toughness.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. Because, yeah, if I swap the Tree of Perdition or whatever it is that like lets me
Mhm.
swap life totals with this thing's toughness and the opponent's, so I get to set them to 1 or something.
Yeah.
Reconfigure cards are kind of funny. Like, it's just like a picture of a creature. Does that make sense? Like,
Mhm.
I guess it kind of makes sense that a weird could like envelop me like like a oozy suit of armor or something.
Mhm.
I don't know. This and like the bug. Do I ride the bug? Like the devoid bug from earlier. Do I get in the bug? What happens there?
Does the bug turn me into a does the bug it's a shriveling scarab. Does the scarab shrivel? Do I shrivel?
Ah.
Who is shriveling in the scarab? In this case, like Fluxmorph weird. Yeah, it envelops me or it touches me and then like I also become a
Mhm.
goopy lightning sort of
Yeah.
weird. I think on the whole, the reconfigure cards art wise err on the side of creatureness so that
Hmm.
you don't lose the fact that this is a creature when it's a creature on the battlefield.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And instead
Yeah.
using like weird little segmentation or like, oh, this is clearly constructed in some modular way that you can imagine how it would break down into something else.
Yeah, good. I'm looking at them now. A good 2/3 of the reconfigure cards have a person in the background as well.
Mhm.
Armguard Familiar is a little beast that's like, I don't know, a little robot creature. And then there's a moonfolk in the background, or this acquisition octopus. You can see this mechanical octopus and then a little thief guy.
Mhm.
So maybe that's part of how you convey that it's either its own independent creature or something that can attach to somebody else.
Mhm. Our next submission is from Decin, Deson.
Yeah,
Let us know how you like your name pronounced.
and we don't know because they're a new submitter. Pew, 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 pew,
Pew,
pew.
pew,
Blah, blah, blah,
pew,
blah, blah, blah. New
pew.
submitter. Blah, 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 blah.
This is an artifact equipment with no casting cost.
Oh.
It's Mischievous Cloak. It's a rare artifact equipment, and its abilities read blue to black, comma, return an unblocked attacker you control to its owner's hand. Put this card onto the battlefield from your hand attached to an attacking creature you control.
Hmm.
Equipped creature gets +3/+2 and is a rogue in addition to its other types. And then 3 mana, return this artifact to its owner's hand. If you do, draw a card.
Whoa. This is kind of cool. Okay, so attack with 2 creatures. One of them, my opponent blocks. The other one goes free. The one that went free, I return to my hand and then put this equipment into play and attach it to the blocked creature and blow out my opponent.
Mhm.
That seems like kind of cool and useful, just kind of as at its base.
And then to regain the element of surprise, you can bounce this for mana, draw a card in the process, and then
Threaten it again.
exactly.
Hmm. That once you get to that level, now we're in like a nightmare mode for our opponent, our poor opponent trying to figure out blocks. They have to like block every creature or block nothing.
I think the first time you get blown out by this, like, I might concede sometimes just because it's like, okay, well, am I
Yeah.
going to catch up in terms of creatures? Can I just spill enough tokens on the board
Yeah.
that I can chump and I'm going to be able to block everything? Do you have one of those little, like, 1 mana can't block, can't be blocked sort
Hmm.
of creatures that you can just bounce and replay every
Hmm.
turn? Do you have
Hmm.
an ornithopter that you can just bounce and replay every turn in a classic Ninja's Affinity sort of style?
Oh yeah. The 100 Ornithopters cube is rejoicing seeing this card.
Mhm.
I really like the first 2/3 of the card, and I feel like that's like a really fun thing to do and is like an appropriate amount of mana for an effect. When I start to think about like the amount of value you get and the amount of really battlefield control you get off of this with the third ability, it is a little expensive. I have to pay 3 to bounce it back, but I do get a card while I'm doing that. It feels like a little bit of a nightmare. But you know what? It's really cool. If I'm playing in this like a commander limited or something like that, now +3/+2 is not quite as devastating as it would be. Drawing an extra card for a lot of mana, for 5 mana a turn, that's now like a reasonable price. That's no longer like crazy deal.
Compared to something like Cryptic Coat that we saw in Murders of Karlov Manor, this has a pretty steep requirement, which is
That's true.
you need to
Yeah.
attack with 2 creatures
Yeah.
and have this in your hand and have like the 2 colors of mana, and at least one of those creatures needs to be unblocked.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I guess you're right. It does have a lot more setup compared to like a Cryptic Code or some other value generating play like that. Maybe that's where the sort of conceit instinct comes. My opponent's already got some cool attacks. They obliterate my one cool blocker, and they have this opportunity to draw a bunch more cards and like replay their cheap unblockable guys. Yeah, the walls close on you very quickly. You go from like thinking, I'll just block this guy. This will be cool. They'll get the ninja out. That's fine. Into, oh, I just lose. I'm dead. I'm super dead.
Mhm. But if, on the other hand, I spill a bunch of small or mediocre, creatures or tokens onto the board, and then pacifism, you're one like super, super evasive small creature, I can't bounce this pacifism creature because it can't attack,
Hmm, hmm,
and
hmm.
all my other stuff is going to be blocked. That you could, y- there's counterplay to this,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
and so I think once this card blows out people in the first like weekend of play, then in that limited format, people are like, okay, I'm not going to. I'm going to build so that I can not be beaten by the invisible stalker sort of equipment deck.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And limited, I don't know that I could ever play around it, but yeah, and if this was like a constructed card, yeah, I believe you. I like this cool bird guy.
I could imagine in a commander multiplayer sort of format, or
Yeah,
in a multiplayer sort of format, going, okay, I'm going to attack you, Tim,
yeah.
and I'm going to attack our friend as well with my second creature.
Hmm.
I'm not going to deal damage to you. Don't
Hmm.
block this creature.
Set me
I'm-
up. Yeah. Yeah.
we are going to work together to
Yeah.
eliminate the other creature from the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's do this.
I'm a huge fan of little mini deals like that. That's one of my favorite things about like Commander Limited.
Mhm. So yeah, a great first submission.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And this hits the bonus points. We got off-center PT, and it's a rogue in addition to its other types, which is close enough to overwriting for my purposes.
Yeah. Next up, we've got a card from Xena, Mana Charge Great Lance. It's 5 mana for a rare, legendary artifact equipment. This costs 1 less for each color among your permanents. At the beginning of combat on your turn, charge this to 5. Put a charge counter on it if it has less than 5 of them. When this charges, attach it to a creature you control with at least as many colors as the number of charge counters on this artifact. If you can't, sacrifice this artifact. Equipped creature is legendary, named Thea, one with Confluence, and gets +2/+1 for each of its colors. Holy cow. I need to reread this just to know how this works. So it's 5
So,
mana, costs 1 less for each color. So that part I'm clear on. Well, yeah, break down the rest for me.
so the charge of this to 5 doesn't set it to 5. It
Yeah.
ticks it up by 1 until there's 5.
I like that tech.
This needs to be attached to a monocolor or more creature, and then second turn when you're swinging in, the creature needs to have at least 2 colors, then at least 3, then at least 4, then at least 5.
Okay.
If you at any point can't fulfill that, then you sacrifice the mana charge Great Lance.
Huh.
You mentioned anime. I think for me, this makes me think of the Monster Hunter franchise, which both has a bunch of weird lances and stuff, but also has people talk about, I want to say it's the Charge Blade, which
Oh,
is
okay.
like,
It's like a chainsaw but a sword.
I think it's like what if a gun blade, but instead of gun, you were just like pouring like laser mana into it and just like building it up, and then you swing in with the big swing? But I have not played Monster Hunter, so I could not tell you the nuances of a charge blade versus a switch axe versus a, bow gun.
I'm
And
looking at a charge blade right now, and this is one of the most video game weapons I've ever seen in my life.
uh-huh.
Let me send you this real quick.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And like you could imagine like the different servos and gears and like lights starting to
Yeah.
shine as you purr.
If this
Yeah.
person's 5 or 6 feet tall, the blade is 5 feet wide, but it's not that long, or relative to other, cloud swords or whatever. It's maybe only 7 feet long, so it's got a shield on it. It's got some gears on the inside. I guess that's where the charging comes from. Looks like it has a little battery in there. Yeah, that is a weapon design for sure. Holy cow!
If this weapon, looking as it does, is like, oh, and I turn these four things and it unfolds into a tiny home. Like it is like
Yeah.
and so this the Man in Charge Great Lance that we see here is a little bit more
Hmm.
a little more Sailor Scout, a little more
Hmm.
Lisa Frank sort of coated in its bright colors.
This is the final weapon that your dragoon equips to fight against like the ruby weapon or whatever
Sure,
in a
sure,
Final
totally.
Fantasy game.
So, if you can get a 5-color creature onto the battlefield,
Yeah.
this is free.
Yeah.
And so, A, maybe there's fun things to do with like bouncing this and casting it
Oh.
for free and like triggering your like up the
Yeah.
beanstalk over and over again. If you can, because it's still a
Yeah.
5 mana spell, right? Even
Yeah.
after it's uncheapened.
Yeah.
If you have a Nephilim out, you can get 4 attacks with this
Hmm.
before it sacrifices itself. And the equip cost is free.
Yeah.
It auto reattaches at the beginning of combat on your turn,
Yeah.
and it gets that extra +2/+1. There's some really interesting things here.
Yeah. This is a little wordy and kind of weird tech wise, but I actually feel like the play of this card is good. I'm pretty convinced on this card because it takes a little while to charge up. And that little while also gives you some time to get some more creatures on the battlefield, which I like. Like you play this, let's say you have like a 2 mana hybrid creature. So 2 mana, 2 colored creature. On turn 3,
Mm.
you can play this and snap this onto a creature, onto that 2 mana hybrid creature. And then they get +2/+1, and you hit your opponent for 4 or whatever. It charges up again. Now you can hit them for 6. And now, that's turn 4. On turn 5, and my second, either on turn 4 or on turn 5, I got to play a 3 or 4 color creature. So I can keep playing with this, but I have time to do that. Like I have the ability to figure out like when I want to play this weapon. It's never that surprise powerful because it has to take time to charge up. Even though it has some explosive things like you were talking about, it can cost 0 mana. It can give 10 extra power, when it's cooking. But it takes a decent amount of time to actually get to that level.
The amount of power it actually bumps isn't equal to the charge, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true. No, that's
It's
a good
equal to the
correction.
colors of the creature.
You're right. You're
And
right. Yeah.
so, in a sense, this kind of gives you your strongest creatures will get the most out of this and be able to hold it the longest. If you attach it to a monocolored creature, it's only getting +2/+1, and it can only hold 1 turn. So there's like
Yeah.
it's better across multiple vectors. I imagine the kind of simple, fun way to do this would be with something like Bant Sureblade or Esper
Mm,
Stormblade,
mm.
one of these hybrid gold, so effectively 3-color, 2 mana creatures. Because you could play one of those on 2, and then this would be discounted all the way down to 2 mana. You could play that on turn
Mm,
3, leave a
yeah.
mana up for something, or not even play a land. And then
Okay. Yeah.
that thing gets +6/+3 because it has 3 colors. And so you're attacking in with like an 8/4 flying or 8/4 first strike for at least 3 turns.
Yeah, you're right. I thought this wasn't that explosive, but it actually can be pretty explosive. Because I was thinking it was charging up like its power boost every turn, but no,
Mhm.
which is still cool. I mean, it's a rare. We're trying to do big splashy things with it. My point of view has changed, and now I'm like
Mhm.
redeciding like all the things I know about this card.
Great with Transguild Courier,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. There were like one or two cards in like the Dominaria United set that were like these. Is it Philagi or something that are like 5-color creatures?
Hmm,
Kabus that are 5 colors. Um,
yeah.
the like if you can't sacrifice this artifact feels like a 1994 clause on a Magic card. I already need to like just find the right number of. I don't know. Do you think that's essential to the card? Is that kind of punishment? Is that threat like really what you're trying to do with this card?
So I think one lens that balances the fact that you can cast this for 0 sometimes, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
Of course, the times when you can cast this for 0 are frequently going to be the times when, like, you don't need to sacrifice this artifact.
yeah.
The other thing is, let's say you do have a Nephilim, or you
Mm,
can go Guild Mage into Nephilim. You know, you can get a 2 to get your 1 and 2, and then you can get a 4 to be your 3 and 4, and then you sacrifice it. How often are you like, wow, I only got 5 turns with this artifact?
mm,
It's, you know,
yeah,
I can't win with just 5 turns
yeah, yeah.
of this. I think I might be winning one way or the other.
Yeah, I guess like Magic doesn't have a lot of temporary game pieces that you have to like jump through hoops for anymore, like fading or something like that. Often like a lot of Magic, like especially commander design, is like it's gonna be okay when you play it, and the sky is the absolute limit. Like this could go into absolutely insane, crazy places. Are you gonna be playing a commander game for 5 more turns after you resolve this? I don't know. The game's probably gonna be over. But the dream is still existing that whole time. Um,
I do
oh,
also, of all of the, this of course gives power and toughness on an off center
yeah.
boost. Of all of the overwrites that we've seen so far, I think this is one of the ones that is most interesting space to
Mm,
go in, which is, uh, hey, we have this legendary equipment, and the wielder becomes legendary and
yeah,
has this big name that thematically matches. It's like, oh yeah, this is, you know, you hold this thing, you transform into the
yeah,
legendary hero, and you swing the big sword. You strike with the big lance.
yeah, yeah. Like a Shazam or the old Thor hammer thing, where it was just an average guy picking up, and then it became Thor.
Mhm.
Um,
What's
yeah,
the,
that.
She-Ra, Princess of Power sort
Oh
of.
yeah, 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 yeah. I I never really thought about that as an adult, like becoming a different person as you hold this weapon. Like that, there's a lot of narrative built into that.
I played a Masks campaign. Masks, of course, is the Powered by the Apocalypse tabletop RPG made by Magpie Games that is very like Teen Titans.
Oh, okay.
Superhero archetypes all end up as like allegories for teenage stuff in ways that like
Mm,
makes it
sure.
really easy to tell a good comic book story. I
Yeah.
played the Doomed playbook for a whole campaign, and her power was she could just like turn into her grown-up self and kind
Mm.
of like burn up some of her childhood in the process of just like,
Oh,
oh, I need to solve this problem. I'll go from being, you know, 4'5" to 6 foot and being like doing things the adult way and then trying to
yeah.
negotiate with people as an adult. And it's like, oh, what a great metaphor for kids needing to grow up too fast and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And so I think stuff in like the more recent She-Ra show was like a lot about, hey, could we interrogate some of these older
Mm.
He-Man sort of toy-based properties
Yeah.
into more allegorical sort of work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Huh.
Our next submission is from Hong Kong. It's Wobbles the Goose. It's a single blue mana for a rare artifact equipment named Universal Translator with art of the Babelfish from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The text of this card reads, change the text of Enhanced Permanent by replacing all instances of a creature type with every creature type. Enhance for 2 generic mana, which is 2 generic mana, attached to target permanent you control. Enhance only as a sorcery.
It can function like Equip, but I mean, kind of like Reconfigure. But this attaches to any permanent, so I can change any permanent to, instead of like rats you control get +2/+0. All creatures you control get +2/+0.
Mm-hmm.
That does feel translatory.
Mm-hmm. Homing Sliver can go from each Sliver card in each player's hand has Sliver cycling 3 to each Goblin card in each player's hand has Eldrazi cycling 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's not every creature type becomes every creature. It's not all things have Changeling everywhere, because you're replacing it on just one permanent, but then making that permanent universalizable.
Yeah, you're not overriding everything on the battlefield, you're just changing one thing. I wonder a creature type that would be the funniest with. Like, is there some obscure like Minotaur card, Didgeridoo, or we
I mean, people play Didgeridoo combo in Legacy.
Oh, okay.
With just Emrakul in one of the, conspiracy change your creature sort of cards.
How does this, what if I'm playing this on Arena, what do I see on a card? Because like I'm looking at Didgeridoo here. Does the word Minotaur disappear off of it? Because it still has to have a creature type because it's Minotaur permanent card. So even with the translator on, I shouldn't be able to put just like an island into play.
I don't think this is templated in the way it needs to be templated, because this is like sorcery templating rather than...
Yeah. That's true, yeah. It would have to be like, when this becomes attached, choose a creature type.
Yeah.
Blah, blah,
Because
blah,
I was
blah,
like,
blah.
well, you'd want to do like a drop-down menu, and then the thing I would probably do is, okay, so you pick what the first creature type is, and that, you're selecting from the list or whatever. And then with every creature type, and it's like, okay, type in what you think are the 6 most relevant creature types to display on this card for this game. If we were playing this in a like spell table commander thing, I think putting a dry erase token and just writing, okay, here are the 6 creature types that are probably going to be relevant here, and then just put it next to there so we can be like, we don't need to look up everything, but okay, it's a goblin, a soldier, an Eldrazi, and an angel. Great.
There are probably a couple cards that mention 2 creature types. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head so I can...
Death Baron, I think, is the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, skeletons you control and other zombies you control get +1/+1 and have death touch. No, thank you for that right off the dome one. I love that. So
because if you make it a skeleton, it applies to itself. Otherwise, it doesn't. It's a zombie. It's a zombie wizard, and so it says other zombies, but it would include itself if it became a skeleton.
Yeah. The thing that I was just proposing like a couple minutes ago, when this becomes attached to a permanent, choose a creature type. Blah, 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 blah. That actually isn't how this translator is currently worded as it relates to Death Baron, because it could replace 2 different creature types. Like both skeletons and zombies are getting exploded out into 200 creature types.
All instances of any creature type with every creature type. That makes sense. I do the Boldweir in Intimidator.
Oh yeah, nobody can block anybody.
All creature type. Oh, don't you know? As we always say, cowards can't block warriors. Slivers can't block Eldrazi. Sables can't block
doctors.
Yeah, sables can't block doctors. Time Lords can't block assembly workers.
Yeah, you put an acorn on this and then we're done. But in terms of getting this to figure out how this would work in digital, it's blowing my mind.
How do you feel about enhance targeting? It's still an
Uh,
equipment, but it targets permanents instead of creatures.
yeah, it's fine. I think it's totally fine for this challenge. Would I want 10 enhanced cards in a set? What would be the conditions where I'd want 10 or 15 enhanced cards in a set?
I think it would have been great as a Murders of Karlov Manor mechanic
Hmm.
from the classic like
Oh,
crime scene TV
yeah.
shows where they're like, okay, now we have this blurry image. Enhance,
Yeah.
enhance. Oh wow, that's the killer. That would be a very silly thing for them
Yeah.
to have done.
The special targets unit. Okay. maybe in fantasy worlds you can actually enhance a digital photo.
Mhm. I mean,
um,
we already have encode as a Ravnica thing,
mm,
right?
mm.
So it's not so far away.
All right, we got two more. Our second to last one here is from Cord, and it's called Book of Life's Victories. It's red for an artifact enchantment equipment at rare. Yeah, at rare. All right, we got some crazy stuff going on here, so buckle up. Finale. Whenever an enchantment is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, and when this artifact enters, attach it to target creature you control. Equipped creature is a saga enchantment with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This creature gets +2/+1 for each lore counter on it until end of turn, in addition to its other types and abilities. So you get like a free equip, like some Zendikar equipment, and then whenever enchantments die, you get to free equip this again. And then once you equip it, the creature becomes a saga, and then has 5 turns. I guess kind of 4 turns of this creature gets +2/+1 for each lore counter on it. So the first time it equips, it gets +2/+1, then 4 power, then 6 power, then 8 power. And then it does get 10 power, but then dies because it's a saga that has resolved this last chapter.
And if you've got another creature on the battlefield, then the first creature dying from saga,
Mm-hmm.
state-based effects,
Mm-hmm.
is an enchantment being put into your graveyard from
Mm-hmm.
the battlefield. And so then this Book of Life's Victories moves on to the next person to start their saga.
Yeah. The picture here is like a person opening like a cursed book and they're shocked.
Flavor text: I read of my graduation, my wedding, my victory, and my untimely death.
Ooh. That's pretty cool. I'm number one saga disliker, so I'm gonna try to put my feelings aside.
Even for this, which is like, it's kind of using the saga like rules mechanics, but not needing to do any of the normal saga stuff.
In terms of knee jerk, it's just as bad because it's like differently complicated. I'm not trying to say that I dislike this card. I'm just saying my natural dislike of saga. I'm trying to hold that back.
I want to see the digital like art crops that they choose for every creature in its like vertical saga form.
I'm trying to be nice to this card, Julia. You're not helping. It has to like free squish the art or something like that.
You can just get like a sliver of the center of there, some cross section.
I'll just be the model and we'll replace all the art with me just like vomiting magic cards as the side art for whoever this attaches to. This is like feels kind of spiritually similar to that Mana Charged Greatlands we saw. I
Mhm.
got this kind of like growing crescendo of power, getting like 8 power. This one does actually have to charge up, kind of like how I thought Greatlands works is how this book actually works.
Yeah.
The creature becomes the saga enchantment, even though this book is an enchantment. Its enchantmentness is not part of how any of this card, how the mechanics of this card work, which tripped me up a little bit at first.
Yeah. This could be a saga aura, like enchantment saga aura. Like that could be with
Sagora.
enchant creature. I tried quite a few of designs in that space for
Yeah.
my Morningtide Jumpstart remix,
Hmm.
where it's like, okay, it's gonna be like the story time of these creatures and everything. And there's a few good designs that you can make out of that, but not enough to really justify the amount of text you've got to fit on the cards.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a relatively succinct way of putting these various parts together. I'm
Yeah.
not nearly as down on it as you
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
I do think so. 2 red mana for a +2/+1. That
yeah.
then next turn is a 4+4/2 and on. This is a pretty appealing. Like
Yeah.
this is going to win
Yeah.
you quite a few limited games.
You know, with a lot of Magic cards, there's a phase where you're like, I'm going through it with like the rooms and doors now in Duskmourn, where I have to like reread the rules text and like when I unlock the door versus when something versus something. That's like kind of the first phase of cards like this, where you have to like kind of reread the text and really understand what's going on. Once I know how this card works and it's just like in the back of my mind and I just see it resolve and see it happen, I actually kind of like this card. Like it like powers up a creature multiple times. Like the dream of having like even +6/+3 on my 2/2 or whatever is really cool. The creature doesn't have to get to chapter 5 if it just dies in combat. You get to hand over that saga-ness over onto your next creature, and then it starts to power up, and then you know by the time that second creature actually attacks, it's probably +4/+2 and not even +1/+1 because a turn is ticked around. You get to hand over a lot of power turn after turn, and all that feels like it. You know, it justifies a place in the deck, and is worth playing with a variety of strategies.
So if you've got other enchantments,
Hmm.
you could get a creature to 3 or 4 on this
Hmm.
and then trigger the finale and move this book onto somebody else. And that creature that was getting +8/+4
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
now it's got that until end of turn because that's how the trigger works. But
Hmm.
then afterwards, it's like I'm just a hollow version. I didn't get
Yeah.
sacrificed, but I'm back down to my normal power toughness.
I'm a 1/3 with 4 lore counters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope I can use them for something.
Yeah, that's true. And that is like good for like a cursed book. Hey, I'm gonna die if I can't find someone else to take this book from me. Like that's like a reasonable flavor. Uh
Mhm.
that's not breaking the way this this kind of story normally works. It works with it.
But yeah, this does overwrite the type and get the off center, and I think it's a really interesting little card.
Yeah, yeah.
Our last submission is from Pat. It's a intentional colorless, not a generic mana. So
Hmm.
1 colorless and 1 white for Emrakul's Collar. It's a
Hmm.
kindred artifact Eldrazi equipment rare. It has Devoid. This card has no color. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 3/2 and is a colorless Eldrazi. So it's a
Hmm.
colorless twice. Oh no, the card has no color and the creature also is colorless but not devoid. That's fun.
Hmm.
Whenever a non Eldrazi creature enters the battlefield, create a token copy of this equipment attached to that creature, except it loses this ability and gains when this equipment isn't attached to a creature, sacrifice it. Huh. So every creature that enters the battlefield that isn't an Eldrazi, from the point you play this onward, is a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of in the realm of like a humility or something. We're keeping all creatures from here on out a certain size.
Hmm.
It's 3/2 instead of 1/1, so like you're not completely robbing your opponent's creatures of their combat effectiveness, but yeah, big creatures are no longer big.
This is a great callback to one of the cards that inspired this challenge,
Yeah.
Avacyn's Collar, the symbol of her church,
Hmm.
which itself is a callback to Ancient Grudge. If there's anything a werewolf hates, it's a collar, especially Avacyn's Collar, the symbol of her church. Yeah. And then, but at the same time, on Moon Heron, the flavor text says the heron is the symbol of Archangel Avacyn.
Well, this the symbol for her versus the symbol for her church.
Oh, I see. I see.
I don't know.
Big difference there, yeah. I recently played technically an oracle, but basically a cleric to Emeria in
Okay.
a Pathfinder 2nd edition game briefly set on Zendikar, and was like, wow, I keep being given all these like visions of how the world could be. Emeria is so cool, with the like dramatic irony that like as a player, I know that Emeria is Emrakul, but my character doesn't know that.
That's awesome. Pat also went through the effort of photoshopping the art here so that it's got like a little Emrakul tentacle and then a bunch of extra eyeballs on like an Avacyn symbol.
Oh yeah. I didn't notice the eyeballs. I thought those were like solder marks at first, but now I see it. How do you feel about Emrakul?
Um, Emrakul, when you say Emrakul, you think of the two like 13 and 15 mana
Mhm.
cube creatures. That's like my first instinct. But it was also sort of this like really temporary religion on Innistrad. I don't know if that was around long enough that I know what like Emrakul's followers. Well, when a human is mutated into like a half Emrakul creature, like what is that? I don't know how I feel about that.
Mhm.
What are you thinking?
I think this card does some interesting things. The fact that it's a colorless and white to make everything this like colorless Eldrazi.
Yeah,
I'm glad that this is a white card that also fits into like the Avacyn
yeah.
sort of thing. But I always think that like, hey, we're setting everything on the board to something. Like, let's keep that in white. All cards don't have to be blue. This does seem like it might put a damper on certain board states, but that's not the worst thing in the world. And 3/2 is a great power toughness to set everything to, because the classic like
They kill
thing
each
about
other. Yeah.
numbers where you can attack any number of 3/2s into any number of 3/2s, and you're not necessarily trading down at any point.
Yeah, I guess it's like a decent amount of complexity. If you're playing this in Commander, you're going to have to get out the blank tokens and put them on top of which creatures were actually collared, which creatures weren't collared. Okay, the original
Mhm.
collar was destroyed, but all the other collars that were created in the meantime are still around.
Can I sacrifice a bunch of like, okay, so I put out a bunch of creatures. I put a bunch of non-Eldrazi, like little tokens onto the board. This spawns an artifact for each one of those. Do I have something I can sacrifice artifacts for free to, like a
Oh,
Krark Clan Ironworks,
oh, okay.
or
Yeah.
some weird
Yeah.
fun thing like that? Or do I have the shriveling scarab from the the top of things, or some other way to, I guess Arcbound Ravager would be more straightforward than that,
Hmm.
because
Yeah, sure.
Arcbound
Yeah.
Ravager gets the 3/2 and then the +1/+1 counters and can sacrifice any spare
Mm.
collars to grow.
That is pretty murderous. You're right. Yeah. If you kill the original collar, then the collars no longer propagate. So you
Mhm.
can, you know, oh, I have to play one creature this turn. Next turn, I'll shatter this. That's still like an okay thing to do. Whenever you're making a bunch of tokens of something, like it is kind of cool, yeah, to then sacrifice it, or like whenever an artifact enters, to put a counter on a creature.
Mhm.
Create a creature whenever an artifact enters. Um, we're gonna have a problem if we create a creature every time an artifact enters, because we're gonna be
Oh,
going back and
yeah.
forth creating a creature. I can't think of a card that does that though, so maybe we're pretty safe. I think I would make maybe for clarity, like the original thing is one thing, and then the thing that gets attached to everybody is a different object with a different name. Like corrupting altar is this card, and it creates Emrakul's collars that do this 3/2 thing. Because then it's a little bit clearer. Like this original collar never gets attached to anybody, but it's still an equipment itself, and it's still like does that make sense? Like
Mhm. I think because this is creating a copy of itself,
yeah,
there's some simplicity there. However, this could be like Emrakul's propagator, or Emrakul's tailor, who puts the
yeah,
little collars together for everyone, and
yeah.
then the token that's being made is Emrakul's collar.
Yeah, because then it's like a little clear, hey, the things that I'm making are bad, but my original object is beneficial to me. And I don't know, that separation, I think, would make it feel a little better. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I I guess like create a token copy, but that has two differences from the original. Maybe that's where I'm getting tripped up because it's a token copy, but it loses this ability and also gains this other ability when this equipment isn't attached to a creature. Sacrifice it. It's not quite a token copy. Like I can't just like print out like a bunch of copies of this and hand them out.
Hmm.
Um, this is a cool one, yeah. And we had 9 of these. I guess now that we've gone all through all of them, we can pick a favorite or two for each of us.
Yeah, I think Rage Spike Crown is going to be one of my favorites from this whole challenge. I think
Mm.
there's some really interesting kind of the interplay of stuff. I like when this creature altering does still kind of matter what creatures you have on the
Hmm.
battlefield, or if opponents don't have creatures on the battlefield, you're kind of getting gravy from this sometimes if you're built to
Mm.
exploit it. Or if they have really, really good creatures on the battlefield, you can also use this to like, okay, I'll ping your powerful, you'll ping your primeval titan away, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, 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 yeah. The what's on underneath the crowd really matters. That's definitely a highlight of the card. I think one of my favorites was the mischievous cloak. It's a little intense, but only a little bit. This is like a high setup. This is like the mastermind card. This mischievous cloak. I have to kind of attack with 2 different creatures, see the right blocks happen, bounce a creature, win a combat, draw some cards, do it again, make my opponent despair. But to do all that, I do have to like build a little evasive guys deck first. So I like this, and I especially like it as the first submission from Decken
This all.
this all.
Our October design challenge is Going Ghost. Design a card that flickers itself or something else, but doesn't return its target in the same turn.
Mm.
Bonus points Halloween Spirit. Have the card be a spirit itself or care about spirits, maybe?
Mhm, mhm.
Or Spirit Halloween. Make it a cheap knockoff of another
Ah,
card. Up to interpretation, of course.
I like this, yeah. What is Brago? Like the it's just like the Brago imitator.
Mhm.
Alright, alright, alright.
Off-brand Nicol Bolas Planeswalker.
I'm looking forward to yeah, exactly, yeah. What's the cheap how do we convey cheap knockoffness?
Mhm.
Spirit Halloween being like a store that pops up every Halloween in the US where you could buy cheap Halloween costumes. They're big stores, but they like take over like an old abandoned store for a month or 2.
I've helped put one of those together before.
Oh, okay.
Technically, it was a Halloween City, not a,
Halloween
but
City.
it's the same thing as Spirit Halloween, just owned by Amscan instead of owned by
Oh,
Spirit.
okay. Is there rivalry between Halloween City and Spirit Halloween?
I think so. I mean, there is a market
I
rivalry,
guess that's true.
but
Yeah.
in the same way that like there's a rivalry between Pepsi and Coke, but they both
Mm.
like reinforce the hegemony of caffeinated soft drinks.
Hmm. I guess like the Halloween costume thing, they like don't have the actual license. So like instead of like Elsa from Frozen, it'll be like Lisa from like Chile. Uh,
Cold girl,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
cold princess.
So if you can incorporate some of that into a card and make us laugh, of course we're going to appreciate that. Oh, let me get the due date. Um, Coming back the turn after is kind of interesting. A little more setup, a little more, like trying to get a plan going. Um, I'm kind of curious what we'll see with that kind of flicker. I guess this would be the 25th. I guess that's a little early. This is going.
This will be due October 4th. So when you hear this, you'll have 2 days. We're going back to weekly design challenges. I think, did those predate you being on this podcast? I don't remember. When
I know well,
we did them every week, but reviewed them the second week. It was like
yeah.
a constant 2 week rolling.
We were talking about Castmeyer Weekly for, I don't know, 30
Right.
episodes.
I
So,
remember doing the chat challenges for that. That
yeah,
was
yeah,
very
yeah. I feel like it was like when Castmeyer came back for episode 100 or whatever. by like episode 115 or whatever, like we can't do this every episode. So let's
Mm-hmm.
do a monthly challenge and let's do stuff in the Discord all the time. I don't know. That might be wrong, but that's my memory.
So that challenge will be due October 25th.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. That's it for our podcast for the week. Hop on the Discord. This is where all the action is. We got the big thing, October. Don't think October. Think Mocktober. Daily prompts. That whole list is up. You want to tease us with one of the first week Mocktober prompts, maybe?
Sure.
What could people
Our
participate
first
on?
week of Mocktober prompts are Alpha, Smoke, Mirrors, Doom, Gloom, Oil, and Water.
Oil. I think I know what some of the cards we might see for oil. I'm excited for that.
What is this strange glistening oil? What is this end of the podcast I see coming towards me?
Before we get out of here, you got any moonshot stuff you're up to?
So
anything else you want to tell people about?
After we record this, but before this episode comes out, I'll be doing the Three Kingdoms stream Tuesday night if it doesn't get rescheduled. But I'll post an image about that in the Discord later.
Yeah.
And then our next big charity stream is going to be in November. It's an in-person stream that I am not going to because COVID cases are on a huge rise, and that does not seem like a smart, safe choice right now.
All right.
Right now, just come onto the server, share your cards with people, and enjoy Mocktober.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's cards every day. People get really excited for it, and it's just a fun thing to see all those cards go by and just see everything. I don't know. It's just so cool. Yeah. All right. And if you need to find either of us, Discord is the place to do that. And thanks for listening.
And always remember, you're never fully dressed without a smile.